This is the Financial Beat, helping you hit all the right notes in your financial plan. So sit back as we strike up the band. The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler starts now.
Welcome to another edition of the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, Vice President and Chief Investment Officer at Ruggieri Financial. My name is Ron Stutz, and always a pleasure to hang out with Logan for an hour on this radio show. And Logan, I hope you've had a great week.
Yeah, Ron had a great week so far, and just really looking forward to a great hour of some good financial conversation and hopefully bringing some good value to the listeners.
Well, as our regular listeners know, we're going to talk about a lot of important things having to do with getting you to and through retirement. But the most important information that I can give out to you is Logan Sadler's phone number. That's because it will lead to a discovery meeting, an opportunity to get to know Logan. He can get to know you, and it's not going to cost you one penny. 888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-PLAN, your number to call wherever you are. Offices in Hemet and Redlands, but wherever you are in Southern California, we appreciate your listening today. One more time with that phone number for right now, 888-823-PLAN. Hey, Logan, I'm wondering if you saw this about the Tom Brady football that was sold at auction on Saturday, March 12th. An unknown fan paid $518,000 at an auction for the football that Brady used to throw his final touchdown pass in the NFL. Then less than 24 hours later, on March 13th, Brady decided to come out of retirement. So now this guy is stuck with his football, and he paid over $500,000 for it.
Yeah, that's a very, very overpriced football, I would say, right? And you know, it's funny, I don't normally always see these when you bring them up, but I did read about this one, and it is amazing because, yeah, he was retired for, 30 or 60 days or 90 days, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious because, yeah, literally as soon as the fan bought it, the next day is when he announced he's coming back. So that's pretty unlucky timing, I guess you could say.
You know what annoyed me about that unretirement announcement? He made it right in the middle of the NCAA basketball selection show. And ESPN did not just run a crawl across the bottom of the screen, which is what my recommendation would have been, but they interrupted programming and did this whole thing on Tom Brady, which, I think Brady probably did that on purpose because he knew that a lot of people would be watching.
I agree. There's a lot of people that aren't too happy about the way that went down, and you're right. It did kind of take a lot out of the game of the basketball game going on, but there's still a lot of people that want to see Tom Brady play, and I get it. He's one of those. In my opinion, Ron, it's really nice to see some of these older players stick around because, the Peyton Mannings and Drew Brees, all these other quarterbacks now are kind of out, and it's the new generation, and I guess Tom wasn't ready to let the new generation take over yet, but he could have picked a better time to announce it. I agree with you.
Yeah, exactly. And, of course, some of us can certainly empathize with that situation, being on the second side of life. Well, let's say that. So
second side, there you go.
Yeah. So good luck to Tom Brady, and I just don't like when you announced your decision. So, hey, let's talk about difficult markets. I guess there was a market for that football, and this guy just paid this astronomical amount of money for it. But Josh Brown, a CNBC commentator, usually has wise things to say about how you should react during difficult times in the market. He says that when you're dealing with a difficult stock market, the answer is rarely try harder. Instead, the answer is usually do less. Type A people usually have a tough time dealing with that particular concept, so let's explore some questions that he says you ought to be considering during difficult markets. What if you have someone say to you, am I taking the right types of risks, and how do I know? Logan, what would be your response to that question?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. That's actually a really great way to phrase it as well. There's kind of good risk and there's bad risk. By bad risk, I mean, sometimes I see some clients where we're just taking unnecessary risk. I mean, a client that might have all their income goals funded, or a client that's maybe way late in retirement or mid-retirement, and they're taking just all sorts of these unnecessary gambles with retirement. Okay, that's something where that comes down to a good risk and a bad risk. Now, there's different ways to phrase that in the retirement plan to where maybe you have some of your money being more aggressive than others, but to take those unnecessary amounts of risk, maybe, going all in on one individual stock or maybe having too much of it in one individual stock. I see a lot of clients sometimes try to make up and maybe try to catch up quicker by hopefully getting better returns. And that's sometimes unnecessary risk. It's not the most attractive way to say this and not always a crowd pleaser, but sometimes the best way to get ahead or to catch up is to put away more money, right? Maybe that's not the funnest way to do things, but that might be the better way to do it. So you want to make sure you're not taking the wrong types of risk. So when you're asking on how to do that, is you want to look over a variation of what your portfolio is doing and ask yourself those questions. Is what happens if I were to experience the ultimate worst case scenario with this individual plan or this individual investment? How would the outcome look? That's how you'll know you're taking the right types of risk.
Well, some people may want to know, am I taking the right amount of risk, and what is that based on?
Yeah, that is actually a great question as well, because one of the most important things is a lot of clients don't necessarily even know the risk that they're taking with the portfolio. And those of you that have been listening a long time, or maybe it's your first time, you guys might know that I am not one of those advisors that says risk is bad. I think risk is very good for some people. It's not for everybody. And there's a lot of different ways to measure risk. If you've never worked with an advisor that hasn't done this, and if you're getting close to retirement, give us a call. I would love to go through this with you, because one of the most important things to do is you want to run a risk analysis. You want to look at each of your holdings, each of your investments, and see what the risk of those holdings are. As well as there's different things like back testing or different historical performances, where you could look at kind of the worst case scenario of those holdings you have or of your overall retirement plan, and kind of see what the worst case scenario might be with those holdings. And that's one of the best ways to look and see, am I taking the right amount of risk? Now, a nice way to answer that question is, if you're looking at, let's say we run this risk report and we're talking through the risk, and it says, hey, your portfolio, if we had a potential down market, could go down, 20 or 30%. And you say, well, I would sell and go to cash, or I would not feel good, I wouldn't be able to retire, or this, that, the other. Well, then you're probably being too aggressive and probably not taking the right amount of risk. So it's very important to have the right amount of risk in your portfolio, and make sure that you have an advisor that's kind of guiding you along in that scenario to make sure you're taking the right amount of risk.
You're listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler of Regari Financial. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call if you'd like to have a conversation with Logan about your particular financial scenario. Logan, a lot of people are right now concerned, and if the bear market ends tomorrow, will I be positioned to benefit? And that's one of the things that a lot of people are thinking about right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Bear market's on a lot of people's minds. Whenever the market has any fluctuation, it's always a fear. And I think what they're asking here is, will I be positioned to benefit? What I mean by that, I think what they're trying to say is there's different ways that investments can be managed. There's different investments that react different to different market conditions. Now, in this, you want to ask yourself, do I have a tactical portfolio, maybe where it moved all to cash, or one of those risk management portfolios, or do I have too much of my money in safe money? If we went all to cash or bonds or to all annuities, we might not be positioned properly to catch the upside of the market, right? That's kind of what I think is really important to understand. You never really want all of your money doing the same thing. You want to have those diversified mixes. So if the market does hit bottom, you're still in a position where it comes back to participate in some of that upside and still get that return you might want to, and maybe benefit off of that potential downturn. But there's also the other side, that they don't want to be all in the market or have all of it participate in the eventual downturn. So it's very important.
On the other side of that coin, if the bear market continues all year long, is that a knockout punch from my current portfolio?
Yeah, that's that other side I was talking about, right? Is there's always that, the market could drop, hit bottom, and then shoot right back up, or, it could stay down for a while. I mean, there's definitely different market conditions we've seen. Some of you guys that were invested back in the 2008, which I'm assuming listening is a lot of you guys, where, the market did go down, and it stayed down for a period of time. And of course, it did come back over that period of time, but it took several years for it to get positive again. And so you really want to make sure hey, if I'm listening to this radio show and I'm 60 years old or 62 years old and I'm getting closer to retirement, maybe next year or 2 years away, am I in a position where if we had one of those bear markets and it continued all year or maybe for multiple years, would I be able to withstand that kick in the punch? And so it's really important to make sure your portfolio is positioned properly. Again, recapping with risk, you want to make sure you have the right amount of risk and make sure that if we had one of these bear markets, it's not if, it's when. The market always does have bear markets. So you want to make sure you're positioned properly, especially if we're in those last few years of our working career or just starting retirement.
I will always recommend that people give your office a call and get a conversation with you going. And some folks out there who may be listening to the show for the first time today, or maybe they've only listened for a few weeks, may be saying, has anyone else been looking at what I'm doing? Maybe they have an advisor right now and, they're concerned about this and they want to know if they're talking to the right people. Logan Sadler, I would say that you would be one of those right people.
Well, thanks, Ron. I appreciate that. One of the biggest things I like to pride myself on is a lot of the people that I'm meeting with, either listening to the radio show or coming to our events or however they're getting a hold of us, a lot of them might not have ever had a financial advisor. They have been able to do things on their own until it becomes time for retirement. And there's also a big group of people that maybe they've had an advisor that did really well for them up to this point, but now they're looking for someone that might be more comprehensive and more geared towards retirement planning. And I think one of the biggest things we offer is being that comprehensive retirement planning firm that looks at the big picture. I think a lot of people have these investments that have done well maybe during the market conditions and have got you to where you're at, but you're looking for a little bit extra as far as how do we start to diversify this for income, or what's the proper things I should be doing to really get geared up for retirement. And that's a lot of what we do. That is our specialty. We deal with people that are approaching retirement or transitioning into retirement, and that is our specialty. So give us a call if you have an advisor or don't have an advisor and you want a second opinion or a second set of eyes to make sure that you're on track to meet your retirement goals and to get a comprehensive retirement plan together. Give us a call. It doesn't cost anything for that first discovery meeting, and we'd love to sit down with you.
Absolutely no cost, no obligation involved here. 888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-7526. The number to call to reach Regary Financial. Logan Sadler is the VP and Chief Investment Officer. And if you'd like to have that conversation, it's not going to cost you a thing, just a little bit of your time. And that's certainly a worthwhile investment to make. 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN. Logan would be happy to sit down and talk with you. Maybe begin with a phone call, maybe a Zoom connection. Maybe you might want to come into one of the offices in Hemet or Redlands and have that conversation, but just have a talk. There's no obligation involved, no pressure, no salesmanship. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make that happen. This is the Financial Beat. Ron Stutz here along with Logan Sadler, and there's more coming up in just a moment.
This is the Financial Beat.
Welcome back to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. Logan is on the radio every single week on this show. Logan also has a podcast. And Logan, before we go any further, tell folks how they can get that podcast information.
Yeah, so you can actually just go over to wherever you're downloading podcasts. You can go to Apple Music, Spotify, and you type in the Financial Beat. You'll actually see over 50 episodes of the podcast recorded and uploaded on there weekly. So it's great content. Listen at your convenience, as well as you could actually head over to the Financial Beat to our website. And you can actually log on there and see all of the shows as well if you don't download podcasts. So check them out at your convenience. Again, great educational shows on in-depth retirement planning topics.
If you want a conversation with Logan that's not going to cost you a cent, call 888-823-PLAN. That's 888-823-PLAN. That number is for Regary Financial with offices in Hemet and Redlands, wherever you happen to be in Southern California. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to get a discovery meeting. And by that, we mean you can discover things about Logan. He can discover things about you. You don't have to work together. There's no obligation. You're not going to have to have any money change hands or anything like that. This is just kind of a getting to know you session. So call that number today and get started. I got a fun fact here for you, Logan. I read about this earlier this week, and I'm going to tell you, I just had to crack up when I read this. A study back in 2014 found that men were only able to listen to their partners for about 6 minutes before tuning them out. That doesn't speak well for us, but what do you think?
What's funny, Ron, is I've been married now for about 3.5, 4 years. Been with my wife for about 9 or 10 years. So, yeah, we've been together a while, and I will say that's probably pretty close. I mean, and it's not that what they're saying is not interesting. It's just that sometimes we zone out and think about other things. So what I always tell my wife is be quick, to the point, have a good sales pitch at the end. That way, it keeps me entertained. And but that is a great study. That's hilarious.
You actually say that to her?
No, of course not. I'm terrified.
Well, I'm just kind of the opposite here. I've been, later on this year, I will have been married for 40 years.
Wow.
And, I can say that that 6-minute thing, I think that's probably pretty long. I don't think my attention span usually lasts that long, to be honest with you.
That's so well. I always joke too is if they did this same study for men, speaking of their wives, I'm sure it's even shorter than that, because I feel like it's just both spouses. Just sometimes the attention span's shorter than we might want.
Yeah, I don't think she's paying attention to half the things I say at all. So that's just the way it goes, I guess. Hey, I got a category of conversation here. Let's call this "I didn't know you did that," because many times clients don't even realize all of the services that you can provide for them at Regari Financial. And I'm hoping that you can explain how you can help in particular areas. When it comes to taxes, I know that a big part of what you do is helping folks avoid paying more taxes than they need to in the future. How can you help with tax planning?
Yeah, that's one of our favorite areas to cover, because I always tell people, tax planning is really one of the most important things. It's completely different than filing taxes or preparing taxes. What it is really a lot of the work that's done before taxes are due, right? So really what I like to say is we are not CPAs, but what we do is we work with professional tax people, whether it's yours or professionals we work with, and really emphasize on tax planning. You want to look at your portfolio. I mean, a lot of you guys listening to the show probably have IRAs or Roth IRAs or traditional brokerage accounts, right? Pensions, all these different things you're looking at when it comes to retirement, and a lot of them tend to be taxable. So it's one of the things we want to do is really look at your investment portfolio from more of a tax lens. There's so many different things you could do efficiently that a lot of our clients aren't doing before they come on board with us. And we're able to really look at, you talk about saving money. I mean, a lot of the ways you're able to do tax planning, you're able to save in some cases, tens or thousands of dollars or more over a client's lifetime by really just focusing on how do we minimize taxes? Again, there's no way to completely eliminate taxes, but how do we minimize and plan for these taxes to where maybe we're able to position these assets more efficiently for taxes now or taxes later? And that's a really big component of one of the most important things we talk about with our clients is tax planning.
Yeah, that it can amount to, hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years. And that's a very important service that you provide. And a lot of so-called advisors out there don't even take that into consideration. Helping with 401k allocations is something you do. I mean, these are important decisions to make, and you want to make sure that people make the right ones.
Yeah, you're right. We actually we manage a lot of our clients' assets. So when clients come on board with us, we typically do manage their assets, provide an investment plan. But sometimes they might have a current 401k where maybe for some reason we weren't able to move that one over and manage that one. So how that works is we're actually very, very familiar with 401ks. And so we'll actually look at their allocations in their 401k to make sure that we're still on track to meet our retirement goals. There's so many things inside of 401k that a lot of people don't even understand what a target date fund is. Okay, if you're listening to this and go, well, Logan, I don't understand what a target date fund is. There's so many different types of ways in a 401k to invest the money. There's typically 10 to 15 different options, maybe more in some cases. And one of them's target date funds, or one of them's the S&P, or small cap, large cap. There's a lot of different variations in the 401k. But what I always like to say is the 401k is one of the most common wealth building tools out there. And a lot of people don't have somebody professionally managing their 401k. If you're getting close to retirement or going into retirement, it's so important to make sure you have that 401k allocated properly to, again, look at risk. You also want to look at a lot of other things as far as cost. A lot of the 401k funds that are in there can sometimes be very costly, and we might be able to even do things in the 401k to maybe save cost and really benefit from that. So that's one of the services we absolutely provide.
Yeah, one of the most difficult decisions also for folks is, involving Social Security. A lot of people just can't decide exactly when they should start. And, that's a very important decision to make because just as we talked about a moment ago, this can amount to thousands of dollars over a course of time. How can you help folks in deciding when to start their Social Security, when to turn it on?
That's a really that's probably one of the most common questions we get when a client comes in. They have maybe $400,000 or $500,000 in IRA, they have $500,000 in a brokerage account, they have Social Security, and maybe the wife has a pension. And the biggest question is really before we dive into anything is, hey, when Logan, when do you think I should start my Social Security? It's always on people's minds because it is one of those assets and it is an asset. It's one of those things you really want to make sure you're maximizing. I have a lot of software we use for our clients when we're going through our planning process. We'll actually pull up Social Security optimization tools we use. And really, it is quite amazing. A lot of clients don't really understand that they might be pulling out, $500,000 or $700,000 or over $1 million in some cases, depending on how long you live, of Social Security benefit. I mean, there is a lot of money where you're going to be taking an income stream from this, but there is really an optimal time to take it. For some clients, it's earlier. Some clients, it's later. It really depends on a lot of different variations of your financial stability, what assets you have, as well as health. That's one thing I personally like to calculate in there. If you're one of those clients listening where maybe all you have is Social Security, then yeah, there's probably not a optimal time to take it. You just got to take it when you're retired and when you need it. But for a lot of our clients that need more advanced planning, there really is an optimal time to take that because, again, it's another one, like you said, Ron. I mean, it could be tens, thousands, or hundreds of thousands of dollars of difference if taken at the wrong time, as well as looking at taxes. A lot of people think, I just got to take it at 62 and I'll keep working. Well, a lot of people don't know if you make over a certain amount, your Social Security is taxable until your full retirement age. And that's we always call it a gotcha moment, right, Ron? It's one of those where you think you know it, but you really didn't. And so it ended up getting you, and you're now getting Social Security, but you're probably netting very little of it. So very important.
Unfortunately, a lot of people out there make mistakes when they turn on Social Security, and then it's too late to go back and change it. So, very important to talk to somebody who knows what this is all about. I would suggest you call Logan Sadler. That number to call is 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. Again, that number is for Regary Financial, and I'll give it to you again in just a few minutes here. I didn't know you did that. That's the category of conversation here today. A lot of people don't really understand that you help people make the best decisions when it comes to just about everything. And pensions, it's very important to make the right decisions in regards to pensions.
Absolutely. It's probably, again, pensions are one of those things that can kind of be confusing or not misleading, but it could just be very confusing to some people. We work with a lot of people from like Kaiser or Edison, a lot of these different places where they have a pension. And what happens is they'll allow them a couple different options. You could take a payout from them. Or you could take a lump sum from them. The payout's typically like a monthly benefit, right? So that is a common option, as well as there's the lump sum. Well, a lot of people come in and say, well, Logan, what am I supposed to do with this pension? Now, there's a couple different ways to do it. And one of the most important ways is to look at your overall financial situation. What do we need this money to do for us? How can we have this work for us? What's the better option mathematically? And then as well as there's also an emotional side. There's a lot of people don't know that typically on pensions, once you take the payment option where they're going to pay you monthly, you might get for your life and maybe some of it to your spouse's life. And then after that, that money could be gone, right? It just goes back into the pension fund. So sometimes that's a calculation we make too, is we might be able to move this money over and get similar to that monthly payment, maybe more or less in some cases, but it's also part of your estate now. So if something happened to you, let's say you get that $1 million pension lump sum and you pass away in a year or 2 years, that pension's now part of your estate because you took the lump sum. So that's one of the things we'll calculate in as well. The lump sum's not always the best option, but it's one of those conversations we got to have to make sure again, we don't want to redo these things a year or two down the road. Most of the time they're unredoable. So it's very, very important you're consulting with professionals that know the ins and outs of those pension options you might have.
And you just mentioned the estate. A lot of people, that's ironically the thing I wanted to talk about last here is that, a lot of people, legacy is very important to them, leaving things to their relatives, their children, or whatever, or their favorite charity, or their church, or synagogue, or whatever the case may be. And to other people, they want their last checked about. So, estate planning is a big part of what you do. And I'm betting that a lot of people listening to this show probably haven't really given that a whole lot of thought.
Yeah, it's totally true. A lot of people don't understand that a really good advisor should be covering all of these things we mentioned, as well as, to wrap it up with a big boom, is the estate plan. I mean, estate planning is something that's so crucial. We've been working with the same attorney now for about 15 years. He's right next to our office, and it's funny. We talk about it all the time. A lot of people don't understand the value of estate planning. It's something where a lot of people never really think about it until maybe it's too late, and it's one thing that we cover with all of our clients after we get the income plan together, look at how we're going to minimize taxes or mitigate through tax risk. One of the next most important things is the estate plan. It's so important as, if something happens to us, where will our assets go? And so many clients, a lot of our higher net worth clients we're dealing with, there's so many different ways to look at gifting to charities, or, like you said, different religious groups, different charities. There's a lot of different ways to have an estate plan that might be somewhat tax efficient or very tax efficient in some cases, as well as your kids. Like you said, Ron, some people want to leave money to their kids and some people don't. It just kind of depends on that relationship, and no judgment here, but there's really a better way to leave money to kids sometimes, right? There's different assets that pass down differently.
Sure.
Tax-wise. Sometimes I hear it all the time. I have $1 million brokerage account and $1 million IRA. They say, well, I'll just leave the IRA to my son, and it's like, well, that probably isn't the best thing tax-wise for either of you. Let me explain why,
Yeah.
So, and it's so amazing when you get to have these conversations. And I always like to say, a lot of you listen to the show, or that maybe have called in or are thinking about calling in. If your advisor or if your retirement plan doesn't have these things covered, if it's not tax planning, looking at when to start Social Security, looking at that pension, should I take the lump sum or should I take the payment? Or if you're not calculating into effect estate planning, it's something where you really got to give us a call. I think spending at least an hour with us at our discovery meeting, we could definitely see if we're a good fit, and if we have what it takes to work with us, and if we have what it takes to work with you to make sure we're a good fit. And I think you'll be really pleased when we sit down and we actually cover all of these topics in our financial plan to make sure, again, our clients are prepared to transition into retirement. If you're already in retirement, it's never too late to get a second set of eyes on it and make sure that this next 20 years that we might have in retirement are maximizing, and we're making sure we're making those efficient decisions to transition into retirement.
888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-PLAN. Well, Logan just mentioned that there are so many different topics to think about, so many facets when it comes to retirement planning, and they take a comprehensive look at everything that's involved at Regari Financial. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call if you'd like to have a no-cost and no-obligation conversation. We call it a discovery meeting. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call right now. Just call, leave a message with your name and phone number, and you'll get a call back first part of the week. 888-823-PLAN. Ron Stutz here along with Logan Sadler of Regari Financial in Hemet and Redlands. Hope you're having a good day today, and hope you will stick around for more coming up after this timeout.
Don't you want to see sharp and not be flat in retirement? This is the Financial Beat.
All right, we're back now with more of the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, the show that's all about getting you to and through retirement. 888-823-PLAN. That's 888-823-PLAN. Glad you decided to spend a little time with us today. And if you have a little more time, why not invest some time in a conversation with Logan Sadler one-on-one? Of course, by necessity, Logan has to talk in rather generic terms sometimes about things, and because he doesn't know your specific specific dollar situation and your specific lifestyle situation. So important to get to know you, and then he can tailor whatever his advice is to whatever your situation may be. And everybody's scenario is different. 888-823-PLAN. That's 888-823-PLAN. Your number to call to get a conversation going with Logan. No cost, no obligation. 888-823-PLAN. Leave your name and phone number, and then you'll get a conversation with Logan. It's just that simple. You'll get a call at the first part of the week. It's important to remember also that Logan Sadler works with all three generations of some of the client families, and many of those clients have been with his firm for more than 25 years. They got great partnerships with CPAs in the area, attorneys, real estate agents, mortgage lenders, and they can help you offer well-rounded guidance in all things financial for their clients. Also, they know Medicare specialists can help you there as well. And that discovery meeting is absolutely no cost. So just keep all that in mind and go ahead and make that phone call. Got a quote of the week, and I think all of us who are parents can sort of relate to this. And I know that you have recently become a parent, and so you're going to love this one. I don't know who said this, but it makes a lot of sense. A father is someone who carries pictures in his wallet where his money used to be.
That is right on point. That's great. That is so true. Like you said, Ron, I'm new to the parent game here. My baby is still only about 6 months old, but yeah, it is one of those things where I'm finding that out very, very quickly how expensive it is. And every father that I talk to that's giving advice, this quote kind of fits right in line with what they've been telling me.
Yeah, and my kids are grown, but I'm telling you, it gets more and more expensive every day, and it's whatever you estimated it to be. Multiply that several times, and that's what will happen. So
that's funny. Well, that's good advice.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing is these days, with the way things are, there are a lot of adult children who are still living off their parents. So
Yeah, no, I believe you on that. A lot of the clients we're working with, college planning is a big topic. We're helping clients kind of mitigate through, as well as, like you said, some of them are well in their 20s, 30s, or I have some in the 40s that are still living with mom and dad. So I get you on that.
Yeah, and some folks. A lot of folks listening to the show are in kind of the sandwich generation where they're taking care of their own parents financially and then their children as well. So a tough place to be. We talked about the fact that a lot of folks may be working with an advisor and maybe they're not, but if you have an advisor, there are certain red flags to keep in mind, and this way you'll know if your financial advisor might be a good fit for you. What about an advisor you're thinking about working with? What red flag should you be looking out for? First of all, one bad sign, I think, is a long resume. If this advisor has a bunch of different jobs listed on his resume, that's probably not good.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I think some people will say, well, maybe he's well experienced, right? But yeah, he may be, but he might be well experienced in leaving as well. So that's one way to look at it. I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just something you definitely want to consider. I know, a lot of our clients that maybe come over to us from one of the bigger wirehouses out there, they might say, well, I was with this advisor for 6 months and they moved him, and then I got this other advisor and she was really nice, then they moved her. And so a lot of clients are coming to us because they're looking for stability. I mean, they're looking for people, an advisor that's going to be there to guide them not only this month, but also throughout their next 20 years of retirement. And that's a very big red flag. Like you said, if people are bouncing around a lot, you typically want an advisor that's going to be with you for the long haul. And I really do feel like, investments, a lot of different investments are the same. A lot of advisors might use similar investments, but this is one of the things I feel that sets us apart from some of the other advisors out there is we've been in the same office for 23 years over here in Hemet, and our other Redlands office has been out there for almost 9 years. So, I think having that home and that foundation, it just makes clients feel better, which I totally understand. If I wanted to, like my tax person or anybody else I'm using, I want someone that has roots there that's going to be around a while.
And a good financial advisor should be a partner for you in your financial life. And, you need that consistency and, someone to be with you every step of the way. Another bad sign, let's call it bad sign number 2, an advisor who takes a one-size-fits-all approach. I can't even tell you how many thousands of times we've talked about how that's absolutely wrong.
Yeah, I agree. There's so many advisors out there that are on the airwaves or wherever they're at, and they're, like you said, all mutual funds are the best. Everybody needs to be in mutual funds, or ETFs are the best. Everybody needs mutual or ETFs. It to me, the one size fits all is just so generic, and a lot of the times it's very unsuccessful with clients because you're not really doing your fiduciary obligation to the clients. I mean, saying that one investment is good for everybody, that's like that construction guy that if all you have is a hammer, you're probably going to think everything's a nail. I mean, right? So it's one of those things, and I think that's one of the biggest. There's a lot of big names out there around the internet that say, annuities are bad, or the market's good, or the market's bad. I don't think any of that's the case. I think there's different investments out there that fit different people's retirement approach, and I think that's one thing we really focus on. I don't focus on if this or that's good for everybody. I focus on if this is good for you, and I think having that customization to your retirement plan is so important, because there's things like risk, there's things like people need guaranteed income, there's things like people need higher death benefits. There's a lot of different variations where your situation might be 100% different than your neighbor, your brother-in-law, your friend. So it's very important to calculate that in, and I feel a lot of the people that do the one size fits all are really doing a disadvantage. They're having a disadvantage as the client, because you're just getting whatever everybody else has, and it might not be what's the best thing for you.
I always say that, when you have that discovery meeting, you're not going to have any salesmanship, high pressure, and all that kind of thing, which leads me to bad sign number 3. And this is an advisor, or a so-called advisor, who is always in sales mode. Not just that first time you get together, but every time you hear from this folks. It has something to do with selling you some kind of a product.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's one of the things and one of the big negatives in our industry and in a lot of industries is sales. I think to some aspect, to be a good advisor, obviously you got to be likable. I think that's one of the biggest things is people have to not be attracted to work with you, but they have to, you have to kind of be on all the time. And I think the biggest thing is you got to really, I feel we like to separate that from sales. I always say, would I like to have more of your business? Absolutely. But I think the biggest thing is you really need to take a step back from that sales role. What we like to focus on more is planning. I think when we start solving for goals, I think a lot of people, when you come in, hey, you need to buy an annuity, or hey, you need to buy this. If you're meeting with your advisor maybe 2 times a year or once a year, and every time you meet with them it's a new investment, it's probably not the best thing for you. It's probably not in line with what your goals are. And I think one of the biggest things that a lot of advisors do nowadays, and I know we're a big fan of, is we like to ask questions. My biggest thing is, if a client comes in and we're going through our review process, if it's already an existing client, I have a checklist. I'll tell them, hey, we you were interested in long-term care. It was one of your biggest concerns, but we haven't done that yet. I'm not saying we have to do it today. I just wanted to make you aware we haven't gone through that step yet, and that's not salesy. That's just really me telling the client, hey, that was one of your concerns and we haven't covered that yet. It's really important to kind of separate the sales from really goal-based. I love to look at how we could solve for clients' goals. And once you build a comprehensive plan, you do have to make adjustments, but I think you can kind of tell the difference from somebody that every time you talk to them, they got a new hot stock of the week or a new hot insurance product they want to sell you. So I think separating away from an advisor that is really, really salesy or very sales based is a really great way to go, because that way when an advisor is putting something in front of you, it's because it's something that's going to fit your goal or one of your concerns that you have been wanting to cover. I think that's a lot of a different approach than some of the other advisors take.
All of that leads me to bad sign number 4, which I'll get to in just a second, but I wanted to put your phone number out there for folks who might have just joined us, 888-823-PLAN. That's 888-823-PLAN. That number is good for a conversation with Logan Sadler of Regari Financial. Okay, bad sign number 4. When you come in and you have a conversation with an advisor, whoever that may be, and they just, talk all the time, telling you about what they do and what their company does and all this sort of thing, and they're not really gathering information about you, that's not a good sign, is it, Logan?
No, it's really not. One thing I always like to tell people is our process is a little different. Because like you said, Ron, a lot of these other people, not every advisor is like that, but a lot of them are where, you come in and all you hear is about their firm and how great they are and how good they've done. And then, by the way, we've only been here for an hour. You should sign this contract and then we're good to go. It's like, well, wait a minute, right? How much do you know about me in that amount of time? And I think that kind of leads into the salesmanship as well as kind of the one-size-fits-all approach. Those three do kind of blend together because it might be from the same advisor. Right? But I think the biggest difference is you're not getting the information gathering is very, very important. We call it our discovery process because that first meeting is typically an hour to an hour and a half of gathering information. If you have a 401k, an IRA, a pension, Social Security, your wife has a brokerage account, and maybe you just inherited an IRA from your dad, I can't come up with an investment plan on the spot right then and there because we haven't even covered what your goals are. What is the hope for this money? Do we want to leave a legacy? Do we need income? Is annuities an option? Do we need life insurance? Right? There's so many things that come into play, and that information gathering is really just that. It's very important to understand what assets you have, what's your comfortability with the market. I always love to ask clients this question, and it's so simple, but it gets one of the best turnouts because they just talk on it forever because maybe an advisor's never asked them that question. I always ask them, what is your experience with money and what's been on your mind, right? Those two questions are very important because a client will tell you a lot about them with those two questions. And I think the clients are coming to this to get a retirement plan put together for them, right? So they want to make sure, and that's what a lot of you listening to this show, you guys know that there's a difference between just a one-size-fits-all advisor and someone that is comprehensive and looks at the big picture. If you haven't experienced that, you need to give us a call and come in and sit down for our discovery process.
Amen to all that. A lot of what you do is, I know we talk about this all the time on the show here, you communicate with your folks all the time. You have regular assessments of where they are and all this sort of thing. And a bad sign, again, if you have an advisor who is not communicating with you on a regular basis, that's not a good sign at all.
No, it's not. That's probably one of the most common ways. I say this a lot, but one of the reasons that most people leave their advisor is not because of lack of returns, but because of lack of communication. Clients, I get it. I'm the same way. I want to be heard. I want to be seen by my advisor. Typically, you're paying them for a service, so I want to see them when I need to see them. And I think it's very important as the advisor. We love to set those expectations up front. Our new clients that are coming on board. Once they decide they like the plan, we go through 3 meetings before a client ever comes on board. And once they come on board, we already have set the schedule for when we're going to talk with them because some of our clients, we need to see them quarterly. We need to talk to them quarterly to keep updates on where things are at. Some of them we only meet with twice a year, but they know exactly when those meetings are. And that way you kind of have that expectation of when am I going to meet with my advisor? That way you're not sitting there every 2 or 3 years saying, man, I wonder if that guy's ever going to give me a call. Yeah. That's not what an advisor is. An advisor should be very involved in your life. I always say you don't have to go to dinner every week or anything like that, but it's very important to have that general communication. And that's one thing we're real big on. That's why we have the YouTube channel that we do for our clients. And for those of you listening, to go over there to our YouTube channel, The Financial Beat, and check that out. That's why we do our weekly newsletter to our clients. That's why we schedule our visits ahead of time because it's so important to keep in contact with clients and keep them up to date because so many things change in this world so fast and it's very important to keep up to date. So give us a call. Come in, spend an hour with me. I'd love to plug you into our discovery process and go over how maybe we're different than all these other advisor red flags out there and maybe just give you a total different experience than maybe what you've had in the past with other financial advisors.
If you like that discovery meeting, it's just that simple. Call this number, 888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-7526. Leave your name and phone number in a message. You'll get a call back first part of the week, and then you can have your own discovery meeting, and you're not going to be shuffled off to somebody else. You're going to talk with Logan Sadler, the same guy that you hear on this show every single week. Logan will talk to you one-on-one, maybe just a phone call, maybe a Zoom connection, or maybe you might want to come into one of the offices. Either way, it'll be convenient for you, and it's not going to cost you anything and not going to obligate you to do anything at all beyond that. That number to call to make it happen, once again, is 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. plan. Ron Stutz here along with Logan Sadler. You're listening to the Financial Beat, the show that's all about getting you to and through retirement. And the beat goes on in just a moment.
You're listening to The Financial Beat, the show that makes sure your financial plan has the perfect pitch.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, VP, Chief Investment Officer at Regari Financial. Logan loves doing this show every single week because he gives them an opportunity to meet new folks, because people call in after every show and arrange to have one of our discovery meetings. Very important. You can discover more things about Logan. He can discover things about you. The important thing to point out is that it's a one-on-one conversation, or one-on-two if you are bringing in somebody in your spouse or your partner. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make it happen. Logan, of course, the VP, Chief Investment Officer at Regari Financial, a firm that's been around for a very long time. And Logan hears all the time from folks in Rancho Cucamonga, Banning, Beaumont, Temecula, Loma Linda, Corona, wherever you are. You're certainly welcome to call that number right now. Leave a message with your name and phone number. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make it happen. Logan, in our last segment of the show, you mentioned the YouTube videos that you have, the YouTube channel that Regari Financial offers. Tell us more about that and what kind of information folks can get on there.
Yeah, great point, Ron. So if you actually head over to the Financial Beat on YouTube, there actually will be a bunch of different videos we're uploading on there each week. They're on different topics that you might enjoy on the radio show, but I'm able to take a much deeper dive and focus more on one topic. And we have some of them on there like evaluating your risk, the impact of inflation, a lot of different things on there and hot topics about what you guys are asking for, but we're able to slow it down a little bit and bring that content to you visual each week. So head over to the Financial Beat on our YouTube channel, click subscribe and follow along.
That's great. There's some really good information on there as well. I can attest to that. So please go to YouTube, search for the Financial Beat, and all of this stuff will pop up. Time to go to the mailbag here. We have a great question from Lisa, first of all, in Ontario. Lisa says, I just inherited 3 different investment accounts from my mother. One is an IRA. One says that it's a non-qualified annuity, and one just says brokerage account. What do these different distinctions mean in terms of the taxes that I'm going to pay on each account?
Yeah, great question, Lisa. Thank you for writing in. Appreciate you listening to the show. And again, sorry for your loss. So your mother passing away is very difficult, and this is one of those situations that is difficult as well from a financial aspect. Is you have 3 different accounts. Like you said, what are the taxes? What does Uncle Sam want of each of these, right, is basically the question. Yeah. So in a nice way, though, of course, there's a few different reasons. Let's cover the IRA first. So the IRA, if it is a traditional IRA, how that works is basically that money is 100% taxable. So there's some very different, some very certain explanations of how you want to take that money out. You do have what's called the 10-year rule. And basically what that means is you can take that money out over 10 years and kind of spread the taxes out. I would want to know more about your income and your household income, because what that'll allow us to do is strategize on what might be the best situation to start getting that money out of there and turning that into what's called an inherited IRA. That's to answer that question. So unfortunately, it is all taxable, but there is some different tax strategies you could use to get that money out maybe more efficiently than taking just a lump sum rollover or lump sum pullout. The next one is the non-qualified annuity. So that one probably is only you're going to be taxed on the gains. So how annuities work is typically non-qualified. You're not taxed on the initial amount, just the interest earned. So I wouldn't know without looking at the statement on that one. But again, that's another account type that you really want to make sure you're looking at the benefits of what you need to do with it or work with a professional. As well as in the third one, you have that taxable brokerage account. That one you might get a stepped up in basis on. And if you're not sure what that is, I'd love to explain that a little more. But if you pass away on a non-qualified brokerage account, typically how that works is you do get the stepped up in basis if there's any gains. It depends on if there's losses, right? It just depends on what's going on. So would need to look at the statement further to give you some further expertise on that. But I think the bottom line is here, you kind of need help. I think give us a call. I'd love to sit down and go through this with you, because As you can see, there's several different accounts. All of them have different tax implications, so it's very important that we sit down and do this right the first time.
You certainly made a good decision by sending us this question, Lisa. Thank you so much. But certainly a one-on-one conversation with Logan Sadler with more specifics on the numbers will give him a much better idea of how you should handle all this. But again, thank you so much for the question. That number to call if you'd like to have that conversation is 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN. Again, a discovery meeting. No cost, no obligation. Next question here is from Sam in Redlands. And Sam says, my wife just found out that she can start taking Social Security when she turns 62. And now she really wants to retire when she hits that age in a few months. I've been trying to tell her that it's better to wait and start taking it later, but I'm not doing a great job of convincing her. Can you tell her that I'm right? He wants you to weigh in on this argument.
He does. I think Sam's looking for a win here in this argument. Thanks for writing in, Sam. Appreciate it. There's a few things here, and I'm going to not give you that absolute win, but you may be right. Okay, so your wife may want to listen to you. The biggest thing I would look at here is you really want to make sure that you guys get a retirement plan together. I don't think you don't want to just turn on Social Security because you're going to turn it on and all of a sudden your wife knows she could take it. So it's not just a good idea to, well, then I'll just retire next month. You really want to put more thought into it and more planning into there, because again, Social Security probably is not just going to be enough for you to retire on, but it is an asset. So we want to make sure we're maximizing that and getting a retirement plan together. I don't know if you didn't really state on here if you have one or not, but Sam, I would really look at some of the different variations and when to take Social Security, because you might be right. It might be better to wait depending on what you guys are going to do as far as if we're going to pull the trigger and retire or what other assets we have. It's very important that we look at all of that when deciding on when to take Social Security. So I would tell your wife, hold the phone there for just a second and give us a call. Let's come in and let's do some analysis and see what is the best time to optimize that.
This may go back to our earlier conversations today about wives and husbands and the time span they have, the attention span, when they're listening to each other. So, Sam, I hope you will give Logan's office a call and have a further conversation about all that. And our last question today is a really pertinent one, because a lot of people concerned right now about real estate and the incredibly high prices with real estate. Yeah. Eunice is in Mentone, and she says, Logan, I owe about $75,000 in my house, and I'm going to retire in about a year. So should I sell it and downsize to something smaller so that I don't have a mortgage when I retire?
Yeah, great question, Eunice. Thanks for writing in. This is a tough one. I think that, like you said, Ron, this question has been asked a few different times on some of our different platforms, and I think it's one of those ones that definitely deserves a second look and to take some time on it, because there's two different decisions, Eunice, that go into this. There's one that's emotional, right? Maybe emotional and physical, maybe meaning, I'm getting older. I'm not sure if I could take care of this house. I don't necessarily need something this big. Then there's the second decision, which is the financial one. So the financial one might also make sense. So I would kind of talk yourself through that, both of those decisions, the emotional one and physical one, as well as the financial one. Because if they both add up to a yes, then it probably is a good time to maybe sell and downsize and go into something else where you might be able to pay all cash for, or have some other money to invest or utilize, or whatever you decide to do with that. But it really it looks at those two decisions, because some of those are big ones. If you're one of those clients that, I have another client that has a 2-acre ranch, and basically, he's taking care of it all by himself, and he's 75 years old now, and he's at that point where he doesn't need that big property, So, and with real estate prices as high as they are, it might be a very favorable time for you to maybe sell, capitalize on that, and then relocate into something smaller, maybe where you want it to be. And also it might make sense emotionally and financially. So run through both those. If you have further questions on that, I'd love to sit down with you and talk through kind of the ins and outs of what I'm kind of saying there. But basically, you want to ask yourself those two questions and make sure they both are in line with what it is you're trying to do.
Great questions today from not only Eunice, but also Sam and Lisa. And folks, I hope you will make that phone call to Logan Sadler's office and set up a discovery meeting. Logan, what kind of things are you going to talk about in that first discovery meeting?
Yeah, great question, Ron. For those of you that I've always wondered, what does Logan do at that discovery meeting? What is it like? Well, exactly how it works. You give that phone number a call, and basically you leave your name and voicemail. And on the voicemail, we give you a call back within 24 hours. And basically you come in and sit down at one of our offices, and we spend about an hour and a half just getting to know each other. I'm going to ask you different financial questions, your experience with money. We're going to go over our whole checklist as far as what assets you have, what it is you're looking to do. And that discovery meeting is really geared towards people that have done well, have saved well for retirement, and are really looking for a way to transition into retirement and get that comprehensive retirement plan. And making sure that they're looking at more than that one-size-fits-all approach, but really looking at how do I have a customized plan that's designed to fit all of my needs as well as addressing all of my concerns. That's exactly what the discovery meeting's for. If you're one of those clients getting closer to retirement and you have saved very well and looking to get a comprehensive plan, give us a call. Come in, spend an hour, and let's see if we're a good fit to work together.
888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-7526. Call that number today and get a discovery meeting going. All you got to do today, not going to have to talk to anybody today at all. Don't need any financial statements, anything like that. Just call, leave your name and phone number, and then you'll get a call back from Regari Financial to set up your discovery meeting with Logan Sadler. 888-823-PLAN. Remember, there is no cost for this conversation and no obligation at all. It's just an opening round of talks, if you will. And again, it's going to be completely free, and you'll get a lot of good information from it. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make it happen. This is Ron Stutz along with Logan Sadler. And Logan, I got to say, great show today. You pointed out a lot of good things for all of us to think about, and I'm already looking forward to our next program.
I tell you what, every week when we wrap up, I'm already looking forward to next week. So appreciate each of you guys listening in and checking us out on the radio show, as well as all you guys that have been listening for a while. Again, really appreciate the support and look forward to bringing you a great show next week.
All right, join us again next time for the next edition of the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler.
The information provided is for educational purposes only and is not intended as investment advice for anyone. All information discussed is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. The views presented today are those of BD Financial Group and do not necessarily represent the views of Alpha Star Capital Management, LLC. The opinions expressed are subject to change without notice and do not constitute financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult with your financial professional before executing any financial strategy. Investment advisory and financial planning services are offered through Alpha Star Capital Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Alpha Star and BD Financial Group are independent entities. SEC registration does not constitute an endorsement of the firm by the Commission, nor does it indicate that the advisor has attained a particular level of skill or ability.